This video's got everything. We've got indie cards of talent that are big names, but not really active right now. We've got rookie one-of-one superfractors. And I'm not gonna let the modern versus vintage debate go away, because this is Wrestling with Cards, not the Kumbaya party. And which Hulk Hogan card is still King of the Ring? We're ending 2022 with a bang. This is the Wrestling Card Market Watch for November 2022. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Wrestling with Cards. I'm your host, Zhan, and we're on the heels of Christmas. Merry Christmas! I hope you guys had an awesome Christmas.
Really nice.
And we're kind of looking forward to the new year now. I said we're going out with a bang because this is the last video on the channel for 2022. What another ride, another year of making content on this channel it's been. And I want to thank each and every one of you for hitting that subscribe button and like, which you should do right now if you haven't already. But all the support over the past few years of doing content, and I can't believe we're still doing this. It's a lot of fun. It is a grind and time consuming, but I love doing it. I love getting the information out there. Again, not to say I'm the expert. I don't know everything. There's a lot of other people out there that know a lot more about wrestling cards than I do. But I just like to talk about the cards and get it out there. The more people talk about wrestling cards, hopefully the more collectors we get. I also think it's pretty convenient that the last Market Watch video, or the last video, both that we're doing for this channel, we've got a lot of interesting talking points. November did not disappoint. But before we get into that, just a few reminders of quickly how you can show your support for my channel, or any of the other content I put out, because I'm everywhere. The easiest thing you could do, you're already here, it's free, I already said it, hit that subscribe button, please. Trying to get to that 1,000 milestone, at the time of recording, of course. Hit that like button if you're digging this so far, if you like the videos in the archives. And then before you get out of here, make sure to check out all the links in the show notes. There's links to the Wrestling with Cards Patreon channel. There's links to the podcasts that I'm a part of, both the Worlds Collide podcast, myself and Tony Vella from WrestlingTradingCards.com, as well as my solo podcast, Wrestling with Cards. You can check out my eBay store. You can buy me a coffee. All my social links are down there. And maybe more important than that, when you're done watching this video, or if you want to hit pause right now, please share this video, share the channel, any other wrestling card content, even if it's not mine. Take the time out of your day to take a content creator's product, if you want to call it that, and share it with the world. That's the greatest way we can grow the audience, get more people into the hobby, because that's what it's all about. It's all about spreading, I'm not going to say the positivity, but the fun of what you can do with wrestling cards and collecting. Not the what's the highest price necessarily, not the, what's the hobby negativity headline going on today. Just that wrestling cards are fun. 2012 CTWE Mercedes KV, aka Sasha Banks. Rookie card, $999.99. However, a best offer of $600 was accepted. So here we have a rookie card, first appearance card, whatever you want to call it, of a talent that's very popular but not currently active in the ring with any promotion. Sasha still has a die-hard collector base, regardless of not being in the ring. And I've talked about this before, about how sometimes we get some modern product releases that don't always have names in there that are all the time active. And we see this with sports as well, when they put out a basketball Prism set and they throw some legends in there. A lot of people don't like those as well, but with wrestling cards, people eat them up. And for some people, this totally makes sense about collecting people who aren't actually active. Look at vintage. Most vintage collectors are buying cards of people who haven't played in years, or they may not even be alive. So what gives with this card? What is with it? Obviously, we've seen before that some of these wrestlers can have crossover appeal. Combine that with the rarity of this card, and it's a win. As I spoke about with crossover, Sasha has some pretty good crossover between really the Mandalorian, the Star Wars franchise, and then WWE. But also, this is a card we don't see every day. I often talk about rarity, scarcity versus commodity cards. I bring it up a lot because I think it's very important that people need to think just because a card is, I'll say, sought after and it might be valuable, doesn't technically mean it's rare, and there's nothing wrong with either side. I just like to put that out there because I think there's some misconceptions. But again, this is an indie card release, and typically the print runs on those, even though they might be a little shady and we might not get the exact number, they are not printing near as many of these as what Topps or Panini or Upper Deck would. I also wanted to backtrack, not take back, but backtrack on a statement I had made a couple of videos ago about how sometimes I think the indie card collectors are a loud minority, but I think that statement does not apply whatsoever with this card, and here's why. This card maybe was won by a die-hard Sasha Banks super collector, or maybe it's an indie card collector trying to complete this set or add this to their indie card collection. I mentioned crossover appeal a couple of times. Not only does it have the crossover appeal from the talent on the card, but now this card has the crossover appeal of collectors. Two different types of collectors potentially battling it out for this card. You gotta love that. And speaking of fighting it out, let's open yet another can of worms. I guess that's what I like to do here. Talk about the age-old debate. Modern versus vintage. Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair Wrestling All-Stars versus Seth Rollins Impeccable? Okay, I saw these sales and I had to bring this up. I had to. The numbers speak for themselves. We are now seeing people pay sometimes higher, if not on par prices, consistently for modern wrestling cards. And I bring this up because this is something we've primarily seen in the vintage space for a long time now. But why? Why now? How could these newer cards of modern talent get similar numbers to the legends, the fail-safe investment cards? A couple of reasons. The first being, I think that wrestling card collectors need to realize, not everybody collects the same thing. Not everybody likes the same thing. It's just like sports cards. People collect different ways and different things. They have their best ofs, their rankings, their own Mount Rushmores. And that's okay. That's what makes all of this go around. It's fun to discuss and have debates. Keyword is debates and discussions, not just throwing hate at people. But for some people in our niche of the hobby, they just don't understand how some people could, oh, why would you spend your money on that person? Their cards aren't gonna go up in value. Why do you like that brand? It's overprinted. Why do you like that company? This company's clearly better. We have a lot of people coming into this hobby that could care less about Ric Flair. They don't care about Hulk Hogan. They could care less who was in the NWO, DX, or any of the territories, despite my love for territories. And on top of that, we also have a new segment of collectors that have come in, and that could be because they're wrestling fans, or it could be that they're in the sports card world, and they flat out just care about rare and scarce cards, no matter what it is. I think many people in wrestling cards specifically are starting to go to those over the commodity card. And again, the All-Stars is my favorite set of all time. And that's probably never going to change. But the fact that you can go out and buy an 82 Hogan All-Stars in, various grades, whether it's Raw, which you gotta be careful on those, a lot of fakes and reprints out there, but Raw, or, a PSA 1, a BGS 5, SGC 7. The fact is you can find those at all times typically. And some of the cards that some of these people are going after, you can't find those every day. It's not like you could just walk over to eBay or go to your LCS and pick up Ringside Select Black or Prism Golds or anything else out there that's low serial numbered, or maybe it's not serial numbered and it's just rare, something like the White Sparkle, or maybe some of the animal prints in Select. I'm not saying those are better cards than the All-Stars. I'm just saying there are people out there coming in that like these new products and could care less about vintage. And again, I like both. And you can too. Or you don't have to like either. You can like and dislike anything you want in the hobby, and I understand both perspectives from the modern and vintage and the people who are taking sides on either. I'm right in the middle, so I get them both. I'm not in the middle to try to play kumbaya and let's all get along. No. I'm in the middle because I like both products. I like names from the past. I clearly am a carrying cross super collector, so I'm collecting something modern. I like the old Japanese vintage wrestling cards. I like the new one-of-one shiny stuff. I'm just saying we should all celebrate cool cards, even if it's not something you collect. When you see something that catches your eye, share it. Make a comment on social media. Spread the word about cool wrestling cards. That's really what it boils down to. And if you're not really into one of these segments of cards, maybe you don't like vintage, maybe you don't like shiny, maybe you don't like Topps or Panini or Upper Deck or Japanese cards, just move on. Let people have their glory of their collection, because what happens if they share that and then all of a sudden they've got new collectors in that realm? Just because you don't like it, you're going to stop people from collecting? Get out of here. Once again, I said this before, it may be the theme of the show, the more we talk about wrestling cards, no matter what it is, the more collectors we're probably going to get, which just grows the hobby and makes it more fun. 2020 WWE Topps Chrome Rhea Ripley Rookie Card Superfractor PSA 9. $3,250. However, a best offer of $2,200 was accepted. Rhea Ripley cards have really picked up in popularity, and I don't know so much about the price, but I just see a lot more of them being shown on social media and posted, and people collecting her, and the sales volume level in general since she joined the Judgment Day. But let's talk about this card specifically. It's got everything you can want. It's shiny. It's a rookie card. It's a one-of-one superfract. I think one thing you could make as a talking point with this card is the whole grading superfractors thing. Some people say you should only grade one-of-ones or superfractors if you know they're going to get a 10. Others say grade it regardless because it authenticates the card, and with it being a one-of-one, that's the only one out there, the grade really doesn't matter. I don't know the answer or if there's a definitive one on this or if we have some statistics or numbers that show. I personally only have a handful of superfractors. They're all in the Carrying Cross collection. I'm not grading any of those. In fact, I think I have 2 or 3 of them in binders. So for all the PSA 10 snobs out there, they probably hate me. I'm sorry. But another thing you could talk about with this card is the actual sell price of it. And I think this is a good lesson to learn for potential buyers of cards like this. And what I mean is the best offer component. Let me explain. Oftentimes I see pricing experts on social media saying this card isn't worth that much. That card's priced too high. That card's undervalued. That card's priced too low, bro. Either way, no matter what it is, the moral of the story here is never be afraid to communicate with a seller. As a volume seller myself on eBay, which, quick plug, once again, check out my eBay store, link in the show notes. I deal with this stuff all the time. And many times I do accept offers for a lot less than the asking price. Why, you may ask? Why would I have it priced higher and take a lower offer? Why not price it lower? Why not price it at or below comps if I'm wanting to sell it? Well, many times as sellers, especially if you're doing a lot of stuff volume-wise, you price things higher to give yourself some room to go down or up depending on the situation. The main reason we do this because we don't want to take a beating at auction. As many of you know, auctions have been ending a lot lower lately, and I know the market as a whole is down, but it seems like people are just killing auctions. Like their products are selling for a tenth of what they should, even though maybe 2 weeks ago somebody bought it for half of what it was asked. So that's a lot of times why things are priced higher, but a lot of, if you reach out to these sellers and negotiate, sometimes you can get that down, especially if you're buying, like for example, my store, I've got discounts where you can buy multiple items and get things cheaper. So if I've got cards listed at $2, somebody wants 10 of them and they send me offers for 50 cents a card, I'm probably going to take all of those because they're buying them together and it works out for both parties involved. But going back to this card, many people probably think this seller lost their mind. We're not talking 50 cents here, $1 here. We're talking $1,050. Well, hold on a second. What if this seller pulled this card from a $20 blaster and then, of course, paid the grading fee? What if this card was part of a bulk deal or a bulk trade and hypothetically they're only into this card for $50 to $100? What if this was part of some big trade and hypothetically the value is $500? Any of those scenarios that you pick, hypothetically, I just threw it out there, that's a win for the seller, even at taking that discount, especially if that card does not fit the seller's PC. I've said that before. A lot of times I'm moving cards that don't fit my PC. I try to keep a fairly narrowed focus on what I want. Or maybe this seller has nothing to do with wrestling cards and this is what he does for a living. These are all scenarios you have to consider when you're seeing accepted prices that are lower than asking prices. 1981 Popey Hulk Hogan PSA 10, $15,000 with a buyer's premium. I have spoke on this specific card several times in the past on several of my videos. You can go check out those in the archives. Then you may be asking yourself, since I just said that, why are you bringing it up again? Short and simple. I think this card has officially become the number 2 to the Wrestling All-Stars Hulk Hogan. There's a groundswell of fandom and popularity around this card. We've seen some big sales of different varied grades of this card, so that kind of combines that. It's a great image, and with this card specifically, a PSA 10, the cream of the crop version of this card. And another interesting note, we've seen a lot of these signed recently, a lot of people taking these to the beach shop, and then that brings up more questions. Does one of these signed versions eventually sell for more than the PSA 10, regardless of what it gets on the grade? Does one of these cards get a PSA 10 auto, but a lower grade, or maybe a 10 auto, 10 grade? What does that do to the value of this card? Does the signature on the card hurt or help the value? Lots of questions. I don't know the answers. Again, just putting perspective out there for people to have discussions about and think. But speaking about autographs, discussions, value, does it help it? Does it hurt it? We're moving on to the next card. 2013 Upper Deck Employee Exclusive PMG Hulk Hogan PSA 9, $7,225, $10 shipping. Shout out to Rich Hopkins on Twitter. This was actually his card that sold. I was watching the auction because I just love this card. I have one. I didn't really need another one. I'd rather take my $7,000 and spend it on something else. But it's a great card regardless, and I had communication with him just to make sure that this was in fact paid. As I've discussed on here, sometimes these cards go unpaid. We've seen a lot of that with showing, but nope, this one's good to go. So we got a lot to talk about with this card. Obviously, if you've consumed any of my content in the past on any platform, you know I have a little bit of a bias to this card. It's my favorite Hulk Hogan card of all time, no question. Notice I didn't say the best, notice I didn't say the most valuable or the end-all be-all of Hulk Hogan cards. I just said it's my favorite. So let's talk about a few points on this card. $7,225. It's a very solid price for this card. I will be transparent and say that I have received some DMs on Instagram from a few different people that actually were willing to pay more than that for my BGS 9. Very quickly I turned them down, because why would I want to sell that card if I don't need the money? But also, I'm not telling you that to say that this card sold for less than what it was. Going back to that argument or debate or whatever I mentioned with the Rhea Ripley Superfractor and how people can accept sales for lower than what something's actually worth. That happens all the time. I'm not saying that this card is worth more than what it sold for. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I'm just putting that perspective out there and the transparency that I was offered more than what someone paid for this, and I turned it down. That's how much I love this card, that's how much I believe in it. But the main reason I wanted to bring this card up is to compare it to a signed version we saw several months ago. I believe it was through Golden Auctions, and I think they had this on display at the National this past year. And again, if you're watching and you can confirm this information, please leave the information in a comment below. Full transparency, once again, I tried looking and doing research. I know I saw this out there. I know I saw the final figure. There's videos on it, people doing vlogs at the National that had this signed card featured in that video. I want to say it was like a PSA 7 or an 8, and of course the autograph was authentic. But if memory serves, that signed copy in a lower grade sold for around the same ballpark, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, as this card that we just saw in a PSA 9 unsigned. And the focal point being, does the signature on a rare and scarce card actually add to the value or take away? Again, something we mentioned earlier on this video. Kind of think this sale answers that question. I've always been a fan of having base cards signed, and there are a lot of people out there that don't like aftermarket autographs. They say, if I didn't get it out of the pack pulled, certified from the company, I don't want it. And that's okay, you're welcome to have that opinion and collect the way you want. But I've always thought it was cool to get base cards, something that is not, maybe I shouldn't say mass-produced, because like the All-Star set, it's not necessarily mass-produced, but they're kind of commodity cards compared to, like this card. There's 125 of them, sure, but you don't just see Hogan PMGs available every day, all day in varying grades. Or one-of-ones or Prism Golds. Those cards I would never get signed because I just want them as is. But take a base Prism card. Take a base All-Stars card. If you add the signature to those, I think that does add some value. And common logic would say that if you already have a rare and scarce card and you put an autograph on top of it, grade it. Maybe it gets a 10, maybe it gets a 5, but the autograph is authentic. That's got to add value to the card, right? In theory, yes, but I just don't know that the market agrees with that. And I've taken a lot of this information and opinion of what I've seen in the sports card world and kind of seen what, if that at all, applies to wrestling. Most people in the sports card world want the rare, modern cards to be pack-pulled autographs. Some people think if you're getting an autograph on a vintage card in the sports card world, it's completely defacing and ruining the value of the card. Then again, it's kind of like the All-Stars where you see maybe some people are getting the 86 Fleer basketball set and trying to get that signed. And sometimes stuff like that does have more appeal because, again, it's more massively produced. So obviously this debate, as always, comes down to what you think. Because if it's a card for your PC, and an example I will use, shout out Shane Norton, Sports Card Nobody. Definitely go check out his content, Sports Card Nobody podcast, great stuff. But we had an interesting discussion about should he get the Bret Hart White Sparkle Prism signed or leave it as is. I'm on team leave it as is because it's a little bit more rare. But then he got it signed anyway because, again, it's his PC card. He can do whatever he wants regardless of what I say or anybody else says. And that's great. He showed a picture of that, posted it on his Instagram and Twitter, and it looked amazing. I thought the signature came out great. The pink on the white looked great. And does it raise the value of that Prism White Sparkle card because it's rare and has an autograph on it? I don't know. Shane's not selling that card, so who cares? But if it's something you're trying to sell, like you're trying to get that autograph to add the value on it, something you might think twice on before you take that one-of-one and have it signed in a black Sharpie somewhere at some indie show. Or before you take that Prism Gold and have it signed in gold somewhere. Again, if it's PC, do whatever you want. If you're trying to sell it, flip it, use it as investment, might think twice. Regardless of that discussion, I'm going to end this video as the last video of the year with one statement. Because after today's video and the year of 2022 of sales that we've seen, one thing is for certain. Poppy, I think it's pronounced that way now, we used to call it Poppy, Wrestling All-Stars, PMG, signed, unsigned, BGS2, PSA 10, SGC 5. No matter what it is of any of those, the Hulkster still rules, brother. Thanks again for watching. Once again, thank you for all of your support through 2022. And onward and upward for 2023. Hopefully we're going to have a great year on this Wrestling with Cards channel and any other platform I'm on. Which, speaking of, make sure you check the show notes and the links below to all the ways that you can help show your support for all the content that I'm putting out there. And before you get out of here, hit that subscribe button, give me a like, and click the videos on the screen for even more great wrestling card content. I'll see you next time.